Hello everybody, welcome to Tuesday live training. I did just see that on my post, it said Tuesday the 27th. Of course today is the 28th, so that was a typo from me. So it's today, it's Tuesday the 28th. So I want to welcome everybody who is joining for tonight. We are going to be talking about jumping timelines for your future reality. So this is going to be a very interesting one. There's a reason why I choose some of the topics that I do choose. It's because I'm guided to, because at this time, there is a connection with the collective consciousness and what direction we need to go. So this week, I was guided to talk about timelines, jumping timelines, using your gifts and abilities for that. How to create your future, how timelines work, how timelines versus dimensions work. So it's a lot of good information for tonight, and I'm really excited to be here and to be with each and every one of you. So thank you for joining me. And if you're just popping in, let me know that you're here. Hi Carrie, thank you so much for joining. Hi everybody who is joining right now. So before we begin, for the new people, because we're getting so many new people in the group, my name is Lauren Egle. I'm a 4th level master Peruvian shaman, and I basically run the group with my assistant Nora, which she has reached out to quite a few of you, and you'll be seeing more of her as we go. So I'm really excited about that. Hi Brittany, thank you so much for coming. So guys, remember, Tuesday live training is on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Jan said, hey there, sorry I missed today earlier. I was out with my mom and didn't make it. No worry, Jan, there is that training, the group healing in the membership portal on top of 2 other trainings in there. We're dealing with emotions and other stuff. So check out the portal. It's all in there now. And I also posted it in the other group. So everybody, thank you so much for joining. Now, one more thing I want to mention for all the new people in here. So I will be reaching out via direct messages. So if you have not heard from me yet, you want to check in your message request box. So it's not your main inbox. So check it out there to see if you can find a message for me. If you can't find a message for me, reach out to me. Send me a direct message, because maybe for some reason can't get into your request or whatever that is. Okay, so shall we begin on the topic? The topic is jumping timelines for your future reality. We're going to be talking about the future reality with regards to 3D and with regards to 5D. As you notice, I'm really incorporating, not only in here, but also in the program, the Lightworkers Acceleration, all about what's 3D, what's 5D, what's not working for us anymore, or we don't really need to focus on it like that, and how to expand it in the 5D, and what's really important in the 5D. So I really get in tune with a lot of that, because we're going through so many changes and we want to be able to change and understand in the optimal level. So 3D was working more on parts and pieces and trying to figure ourselves out like that. 5D is more inclusive and whole. So I'm really incorporating 3D and 5D perspectives in the videos to try to teach you as much as possible as we continue to grow and going through this amazing time, right? Such an amazing time. Okay, so again, if you are just popping on, comment down below, let me know that you're here. If you're replay, hashtag replay, let me know that you are joining me. I love to see who's joining. And of course, if you have any questions, always feel free to type in the comments below. If I can't get them during, I can try to get them after. Make sure you tag me, even though Facebook has been really funny with that. Even if some people tag me, I don't see it. That's okay. Hi, Gretchen. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so we're ready. We shall begin. Yay! So, number 1, we're going to talk about how to create your future. Then we're going to talk about what is stopping us from changing our future. And then we're going to talk about get even deeper into jumping timelines for seers. So we always, in general, in these trainings, we start out with the the more common information, the more slightly more of basics, even though it's not really basics. And then we get deeper as we go. And normally towards the end is whenever I add in some more quote unquote advanced. I don't want to say it's actually advanced, but some deeper things is more towards the end. So just for a heads up. Okay, so the first thing we're jumping into is let's talk about timelines versus dimensions, okay? This is important because as I'm going to explain the timelines, I'm also going to explain how it goes into the dimensions. So timelines, if we think of it in the logical 3D way, is they're parallel to us, right? They're parallel. Why? Because it's in the same dimension. It's just in a different timeline, a different realm. Okay, so let's talk about dimensions. Dimensions, people normally think of going up. Like as you raise vibration, you're going in a higher dimension. So therefore, the earth is shifting right now from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. Of course, the fourth dimension is more of a tunnel, more of a heart space. Tunnel, basically. So with that being said, as we're shifting timelines, we are also growing vibrationally if we're going towards what our heart is calling us to. So we are going, not only are we going, parallel to us, we're also climbing up the ladder. And I'll explain that as we go, but that gives you a little idea, okay? So how to create your future. How to create your future, this has a lot to do with abundance, of course. So I'm going to relate abundance and that manifesting abundance on top of how it even works with timelines. So let's talk about the simple structure of future realities. When we're trucking along, going on our day-to-day, of course, we have certain cycles. In the idea of timelines and time does not exist in the same way as we see time. The top clicking, past, present, future, that is irrelevant or not. That's not how time functions outside this 3D realm. Okay? What do I mean by that? So time to us is linear. It's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, the earlier was my past. Right now, at 7 something is my present. The future is going to be tomorrow, right? But time itself is not actually linear. That's just how we see it. Time is actually circular, and it's not based on actual time of the clock ticking, but rather time in a way of cycles. So this is why I did the last video all about cycles, getting back with our cycles of the earth. So this is interesting because how do we, if we're going in circles, right? How do we move forward, right? Wouldn't we just keep repeating? Well, we do keep repeating if we don't learn our lessons, okay? If we don't learn our soul growth opportunities, then we do keep repeating because that's what we're here for. So if we're thinking of timelines, we can think of timelines as circular, okay? Constantly going in the same pattern unless we break that soul growth opportunity, whatever one arises at that time. Then we go on another timeline. So here's a way to look at it. If we're going to look at it in a linear fashion, because that's kind of how our brains are wired in this 3D, we think of time as linear. If we're going to think of it as a linear fashion, we're trucking along, and then we have this same constant soul growth opportunity lesson that we've been going through. Well, finally I realized, I'm not going to go down that road again. I don't want to keep going, for example, in the same abusive relationship. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to go into a different direction. And I'm actually going to work on myself, release the emotions, go through the healings, all of that. Well, then what happens? Boom. You jump to another timeline. Okay? This timeline, what you're doing, instead of going on the same timeline, which would have taken you to another scenario of the same abusive relationship, You're jumping to another timeline where there is no new scenario of the same abusive relationship because you've jumped timelines. It no longer exists. Okay? So if you were thinking about it in a linear fashion, we're trucking through, we realize and start healing ourselves in a certain whatever pattern or cycles in our lives. We realize, I don't want this anymore. We heal ourselves. Boom, we jump to another timeline. So that is the idea of how timelines work. We may not know it consciously that we're jumping all the time. Some people realize it. And I'll talk about deja vu and how that can really help see when you're jumping timelines. Okay, so what if we're trucking along and we get to a point in our life, say we're talking about abusive relationships, and we go into abusive relationship, we're not really looking, say if we make one little small step, okay, cool. That's like peeling the onion. We get a little view of that. But, we're still in that same big cycle because we're ignoring things. We're not fully doing what our heart is guiding us to do. We're pushing it aside and we're going back to what we feel is comfort, or we're scared to move forward. What happens? Say if we're going forward, boom, we fall back into another cycle. Okay, so what if we go forward and we realize, we heal ourselves, we jump to another timeline. Okay, so then something comes along and then we maybe have a little test, a universal test. That test says, okay, are you really still on this cycle on your heart, or do you want to go back to the old ways? So why would we get universal tests? Why would we get these tests? Well, think about it, guys. If we've gone so long, our whole life in other lifetimes, with these certain cycles, patterns that we have not broken, that we've not healed for our own soul growth, do you think it's going to be that easy to shift like that? It is. It can be. But we have a tendency, because of the way we're patterned, because of our patterns, to go back to our old ways. So, okay, so we're on the new timeline, and then we get a universal test, and we end up falling back to our old ways. Do we actually go back to the other timeline? Do we jump all the way back? Here's the way of thinking about it. No, because we've already learned so much. But if you continue to go back into your old ways, you don't incorporate anything new, well then yes, you're going back to an old timeline. It's like recreating that old timeline again, and you're stuck back there, okay? So that is just an idea of boom, 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 going forward, break a cycle, jump to another timeline, boom, now creating. Okay, so how do we actually create the future? So this goes into, this goes into the abundance mindset, right? Or the idea of abundance and creating what you want to manifest. So this is why I was talking about 3D and 5D, okay? So 3D, or let's just talk about 5D. So 5D is really, really about creating. I've said this over and over, where it's immediate, instant manifestation. So say we're going into the new timeline, and we're going into the 5D energy. So what do we want to do to actually create the timeline that we want, that we desire? Number one, thoughts. Okay, I'm getting a little bit more specific here. Thoughts. When we continue to focus our thoughts on things that are not serving us, so we're not coming from our hearts, we're out of our hearts, and we're focusing on the negative, or focusing on the same cycles, or how somebody did something to us, or how we were the victim, or how we're focusing on one scenario of the bigger picture, and we keep getting stuck in that loop, well, that's not going to create, that is actually creating where we're going. We're going back to that same cycle. We're focusing on it, therefore going. Where we put our focus is where the future is going to continue to go for us. So immediately our focus goes on the past, and we continue to get wrapped up in the past dramas, the past little things. Well, then we're going to create it again, okay? So we have the thoughts. Then we have the actions. This is the part of taking the steps. You can change your thoughts, but if you're not taking the steps, the actions, then you're doing the same thing. That's still a way of choosing. So no matter what, in that instance, you're choosing which direction you go. It may be a little, a little slighted because, your thoughts are thinking, I'm creating a whole new life. I'm creating what the positive. I'm focusing on what I want to create for the 5D, but yet your steps, you're starting to do that. You're still doing the actions of the past. For instance, going back, like your thoughts are like, I'm not going into another abusive relationship. And you start thinking better about yourself. You're loving yourself, but your actions bring you back there. Well, then you're still going to create that, guys. So Jen said, then you get that same things keep happening to me feelings. Well, yes, whenever you're going through your cycles, you'll get that same like, wait, I've been here before. I don't like this. Why is it coming back? Right? So that is a sign that if you continue getting those feelings of, oh, why does this keep happening to me? That means there's some way in there that you're missing. You're missing that point of change, that point of creating, the new life, because you're still stuck in that same cycle. And then Jan saying, blaming others for things and not accepting your part and changing you. Yes. This is huge, huge, huge. And I've mentioned that in other videos or other trainings, that is really about you and what your part is, okay? Everything is a mirror image of yourself. Again, if you have not seen that training, go back, because everything is all about your part of it. So thank you, Jen, for that, for sure. So if we're going back to the abundance mindset, right? We want to create our future. And then I'll relate it back to the timeline and how that works, okay? So we want to create our future. So we need to have the thoughts focusing on what we want to create. So if we want to create positive and all of that. Then we have the actions, taking the steps. And then we have the acceptance of emotions, guys. This is huge. And the reason why this is huge is because going into the 5th dimension, our thoughts, and when we think about looking at our emotions, we always talk about releasing emotions. And yes, that is great. But if there are emotions stored up within us and we don't actually accept the emotions, so we feel them and we're like, okay, let's get them out. Let's get them out. Let's go. Breathing them out, right? That's not going to help. Because in the 5th dimension, the emotional aspect of it is accepting your emotions and how you feel. Is that total acceptance. So if you're, wanting to create an abundance and your amazing future, and you're taking the steps, right? And you have the thoughts, but you're not accepting the emotions that come up in that moment, whenever it is, or you're not accepting the emotions that come up when you're doing the deep healing, or you suppressing them, what are you doing? You're choosing not to accept yourself, and therefore you're going to keep feeling those emotions. How are you going to keep feeling those emotions? It's going to bring you back to the same cycle, right? Same cycle, feeling the same emotions, until you learn to feel them, accept them, love them, move on. Okay. So with that being said, Gretchen said, it takes a long time, sometimes years of no relationships to heal. Yes, it can. It has. But we're healing at a so much faster rate. It's amazing, which is part of all the shifts that have occurred, is really bringing up not only the smaller parts of it, but the roots to it. So as we come into this 5D energy in different parts of ourselves, and as we integrate it more, the roots are starting to come up now. So we are healing so much faster. And I'll talk about healing the past and how to create the future as we go. So yes, Gretchen, that it definitely can, and it definitely has in the past. But it's a lot shorter now. Okay. So now we'll go back to timeline. So we talked about abundance. So now we're in the timeline, we're trucking along in the one we're in right now. We notice a scenario comes up. We stay in our hearts. Our mind's not focusing on all the negative stuff, but rather accepting the emotions, putting out where we're taking the action steps that our heart is calling for us. And the thoughts are about, looking, okay, what can I change about myself? What is it that I need to learn to grow? and you focus in on that aspect of it, well, then you're jumping timelines. But on top of that, if in the same time you're still creating in your thoughts, in your actions, in your emotions, that you're going through a certain situation and you bring it a level up of creating, yes, this is what I need to heal, and this is what I am, right? This is what I want this to become. Not just healing, thriving. So you change your thoughts, actions, emotions into the what you want to create for yourself, not just focusing on what's the next level, but what you actually want to create. So therefore, not only are you jumping timelines, you're jumping like 10 timelines. What do I mean by that? It means you're not taking a little step, you're taking a huge step. So you're actually jumping on a whole different timeline when you take it up a whole nother level, a whole nother notch. So that is a huge secret. But it's not actually a secret, right? How long have people said, you focus on positive thoughts, focus on, taking those actions, put yourself in those shoes. They've been saying it all along, right? But sometimes we just don't realize how important that is until now we're seeing the effects of things happening so quickly that we're like, oh wait, this does work. This is working. Look what I'm manifesting. So in the past, in the 3D, we looked at the past to heal, which we still need to do that, guys, because we're still in the transition from 3D to 5D. There's still things in the past that is holding us back. But as we go into the 5D, it's going to be less and less of that, and purely creating from that present moment. But right now we're doing both. We are looking at the past, not living in the past. We're looking at the past, and we're focusing on what we want in the present and putting our attention and focus in that area, in what we want to create. So we're not only just, okay, I'm healing in this space. No, I'm thriving in this space. This is where my focus is at. Not here anymore, but here. And then we're going to jump 10 timelines, as in we're going to create the timeline that is even better for us. Okay, so that's the idea of hopping timelines when creating your future. So we have that part of it. And what we're going to go to next is what's stopping us, right? What is stopping us from creating, jumping these timelines and creating this amazing life? Well, it's the same idea as our past, right? Our past can be stopping us. Our wounds from the past that we can be stopping us. So then we've gone through the same cycle of, I'm still not getting anywhere. I know it's from the past. This is going to take forever. Do you notice what I'm saying right now? Do you realize? Because we don't catch ourselves with this. Whether it's subconscious or conscious, we go back into, this is going to take forever. I'm not going anywhere. Right there, you're creating that future. I just wanted to point that out. Because we do that all the time. It's like, why isn't this changing? And you focus, where's your focus? On why isn't it changing instead of, it is changing. So it's not necessarily faking it till you make it. The belief is that you've made it. And that's just the abundance part of it. Okay, so what's stopping us? Fear, comfort, right? Our past, right? The wounds from our past. So this is the interesting part of the third dimension of going into the fifth dimension is that we are at even a grander scale healing our past, healing all, and I've mentioned this over and over, healing the what's it called? Familial patterns, right? The multi-generational patterns. But we're healing at such a grander scale now, and the roots are really coming up. So what we're doing right now is we're really digging deep and healing the past, right? So that the past is no longer affecting how we create and how our future is. So I've definitely talked about that a lot, but I wanted to reiterate that. So in the 5D, in reiteration with this, in the 5D is we're not going to have any more ties to the past. Once we fully integrate that, once we heal the past, we're not going to have the ties of the past that we've had in the past. right? But we're so used to that. We're so caught up in the idea of, well, I have all these past wounds because that's how we've learned to heal. So if you've been a healer, you've been in this realm for a long time, well, that may take a little bit longer for you to get out of the idea that, wait, it's not like this anymore. And the quicker we can transition to the idea of it's not like this anymore, the quicker we're actually going to transition into the 5D. Okay? And yes, we still do have to go back to the past to help heal some of the past. Now, let's talk about other things that are stopping us, right? I talked about wounds from the past. I talked about programming, things that we're just so used to. Here's an example of a belief. I'll say belief. This is more of a belief. And a programming, actually. So it's on two levels. I was talking to a client in Lightworkers Acceleration, and we were talking about one thing that this person has really taken on as that, like, part of this person. And the idea is, and in this 3D world, what we're thinking about is impossible. If we talk to anybody that's completely in this 3D world, they'll be like, no, that's impossible. Like, that's, like, you can't get rid of that, or you can't change that, or that can't heal, whatever it is. But that's a 3D way of thinking. In the 5D, it's amazing because once we let our mind limitation go, we're creating like crazy. So that is an example of this person had something that they took on at such a young age, and now because of it, they still have the beliefs that it can't change, that it's impossible. So these are the beliefs that we want to change, right? But this is also what's stopping us. This is what is stopping us from moving forward in the future, from jumping those timelines. And this is what we need to let go of. We all have those things that we hold on to. And I can say one thing that I'm still letting go of, and I do know why I'm still holding on to it, but one thing I'm still holding on to is not wanting to give too much information in fear that someone's going to take the information and use it wrongly. Why do I fear that? Because I've done that so many times in the past. So if I tell you exactly how to jump timelines, I give you the step-by-step on how to, then I feel responsible for the person if they don't have the foundation and they start jumping timelines and something happens to them. So that is something that I need to let go of. Because in the 5D, right, we have all the answers, right? The answers will come. We may not have it consciously, but it exists and we're guided. So it's completely different there. So we all have those things from the past that we're still holding on to that is stopping us from moving forward in our future, right? So that's what's stopping us from the past is stopping us, right? And then we also talked about creating from the now. Those beliefs from the past are still affecting us from creating from the now because why? Same example. If I want to do something and I still have the belief that's not possible, well, then what am I creating? I'm not even opening my mind up to creating something new. Okay, I've talked about all of this, the past stuff too. Another thing that is stopping us is distrust from letting go of control. And I'll get to that a little bit later, okay? But control is a big one. Control is a big one. Gretchen said, yes, past ones go away, almost forgotten. I believe that is true. Yep. Yep. Okay. So then we're going to go into, let's talk about this before we move on. So many times we can also live in our past. So is there a scenario or is there something that happened that really shook you and you keep going back to that time over and over and over again. You keep thinking about it. And a lot of times it's not even consciously. You go there, you just think about it, right? And then you don't even realize you're thinking about it until, oh, I'm thinking about this. Traumatic experiences. Many times we can be frozen. An aspect of us or part of us can be frozen in the past. So, for example, I just worked on it took this long for me to work on it, but I recently worked on I was frozen in the past when I got the call about my brother and when he died. I knew exactly where I was. I was frozen there. An aspect of me was frozen. And then I also had, like, whenever I saw my dad's life leaving, I was frozen in that time. So I had to go back and help those aspects move, help those aspects become unfrozen, because part of me is stuck in the past. That is partially living in the past. Part of me is living in the past. When I'm living, part of me is living in the past. I'm not able to create from right here fully because I have those parts of me. Okay? So, that is a thing where your parts of you or aspects of you can be frozen in the past from trauma. And this is for you to know, because that is really important, because then you can tap into to win, right? Right. And go further with that. All right. So then we're going to talk about jumping timelines, okay? I had more with that, but I'll come back to that. So let's talk about seers, okay? Seers are people who have the gift of foresight, right? A lot of people who are very good with their vision, a lot of them are seers. Not all of them, but a lot of them are seers. So seers are ones that can travel time. They're really good with time. They're really good with timelines, okay? So seers can see into the future. But what's few things that stop us from seeing in the future? And I'll talk about why this is so important. I'll get into the 5D and the world changing and how important it is for us to step in our shoes so that we can do our part. I'll dive into exactly the part of the seers. But what stops us? People who have these gifts. Number one, fear of opening the gift. And the reason why I'm telling you the fears, guys, is because sometimes you need to hear it in order for it to surface, right? You need to, like, hear something and you're like, oh, that is me. Or that resonates and I didn't even know. So this is why I go over different things that are stopping us, different things that are the blockages. So you can be like, oh, that is me. Because the first part of it is realization that has to do with you, right? So what are the fears? So fears of opening our gifts, the fears of going deeper into this gift, right? Here's the thing with any gifts. We can't have one without the other. What does this mean? We can't slightly open it to see all the good stuff and then block out all the rest. A lot of people want to do this whenever, and I'll say this with complete non-judgment, guys, but a lot of people want to do this whenever it comes to entities. People with seers, or people who can see the future, but say people who can see ghosts, entities, or I say ghosts as earthbound spirits, entities, beings, right? Well, sometimes that scares them so much that they block their vision. Because you can't have just blocking this and hoping to see the rest. Why? Because that's part of your soul growth opportunity. This is a gift. So it's learning how to work with this gift, how to treat it as a gift and not as a curse. But of course, that takes time and learning, right? So the same with future. Same as the future. So if we're able to pop into the future, what could we see with that? We can see the future of our family, right? That may hurt. That may really hurt. What does this mean? The future, possibly deaths, right? We can see the future of things, that can be scary. With that being said, this goes into so much, right? But the thing is that when it comes to seeing, when it comes to, your gifts, and guys, whenever I say seeing, and whenever I say a seer, even people who have dreams, right? Dreams, premonitions in their dreams, or they daydream and they have a premonition. That is part of being a seer. So we may get glimpses. So it's not just boom, I can sit here and see myself jumping from timelines, or I can go into the future. Yes, that is part of it as you grow in that gift. But think about your dreams. If you've had any premonitions, or if you knew something was going to happen and it did, right? Or if you go into meditation and you see something and it happens. So those are seers' gifts. So as you continue to grow, you can open up into seeing the future, or I should say the possible future reality. So here's the reason why people don't want to go into it, because of fear of what we can see. But guys, this is the biggest thing, is that what we can see in the future is only a possible reality, which means the future can shift, okay? The future can shift. Just as I was saying, you're walking on a timeline, you're realizing that you don't want the same cycle. You realize you need to make some changes. You make those changes, you pop into another timeline. Boom, you have a whole nother possible future reality like that you're on. So think about if you're seeing the future for someone else. Say if you're seeing the future of a family member and you get that they're gonna die. Let's just say that for example. That doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna die. You don't know what's going to happen from here and there. And you don't even know fully what that means. As in, maybe you see them as dying, but what if that message wasn't them actually dying? What if it's a part of them dying? A part of them that's no longer serving you? So seeing the future is not so set in stone, but that's what we think it is, right? That's what we think it is. So if you've gone to a psychic and they say, this is your future, and they don't explain, but you can change it. What happens is we see that future, we stick to it, and then we can create it. So this is important to know for seers, that if you are looking into the future, that it can change. Number one. Number two is that we need to know that it can change so that we don't get stuck on it and then create it to happen. Because if we don't like it, we can change it. And this third thing about being a seer is karmic grace. Karmic grace. What does this mean? We want to ask for karmic grace. So if we're seeing something in the future, we get a dream of the future and we don't like the outcome and we feel so stuck and we feel like there's nothing we can do about it, we pray. What do I mean by pray? I mean, ask for karmic grace. Because truly, we don't know the outcome. As much as we say we do, we don't. Because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know all the scenarios that are going to play. We can see possible future realities and help people and give guidance in that way, yes. So Linda says, just like the tarot cards about the future, we can change it if we put the intent right. Yes, 100%. So it's really good to know for people who are seers, people who can travel timelines, to know that what we think is going to happen is not the end-all be-all. We have to make a change, or other people can make changes, and we can ask for karmic grace. So this is a huge thing for seers, and in general. It's so important. And going into the 5D is so important to surrender. And I stress this, and I stress this, and I stress this. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Okay? Because we don't know everything. And when we surrender, we allow what's of our highest benefit to occur, right? When I say surrender, that means becoming part of the all. That means letting our egoic ways get out of the way. It means allowing, whatever it is to surface that we need to see, because that's going to help us change things in a way that's of our highest benefit, okay? So another thing, and this is huge, and this is where I talked about control. So many of us, light workers, who have the gift of time, like can see future, whether it's in dreams, whether, meditations, concurrent lives, is that we tried to control in the past. Most of us, almost all, I'm going to say almost all of us. Why? Because if we have the ability to see the future, to know what's going to happen, then we try to control it. But where does that come from, guys? That comes from fear. It comes from not trusting the divine plan in whatever way that evolves, right? So we have in the past, like most of us, have created things and, excuse my language, fuck things all up because we try to control. Because we weren't coming from our hearts. So for anybody who has this gift of seeing, this gift of jumping timelines, surrender, surrender, surrender. Come from your heart. And when you come from your heart, you're able to trust, surrender. Things are going to be shown to you, and they're shown to you so that you can come back into the present moment to make the changes that you need to make for yourself and for the world. Okay? This is why this is really important. Number one, when we're changing our future, when we are jumping timelines, okay? What does this mean? I was just talking to Trevor Mickelson. He came up. He was the 5D money guy for the people that saw the last Lightworkers and Healers. I'm sorry, the last Heal Your Chakras Intensive. We were just talking about timelines. He's in love with timelines and timeline jumping and all of that. And he said it. He said, whenever we jump timelines, expect things to become chaotic. Expect things to fall away. They will. They will. So what does this mean? I say they will because when you do jump that timeline, whatever is no longer serving you is no longer needing to be part of your life. So can it create chaos? And what do I mean by chaos? It means a completely new job, a completely new sense and direction, a completely, whatever it was that was no longer serving you, gone, disrupted, broken, changed, because it wasn't serving you. So this is the scary part too, is that we expect all of these things in this 5D shift to come in like a rainbows and butterfly type way. It does. The feeling of it does. But a lot of things fall away when we continue to go for, in our hearts. A lot of things fall away, which can hurt. Because in a whole, with life, there's birth and there's death. There's destruction and there's creation. So in our lives, in our cycles, when we are changing and going on a new path that is of our highest benefit, the destruction can occur. And Trevor was just saying this, which the way he said it was perfect. I couldn't have said it better, so I used his words just now. There's destruction and then there's creation. Those are his words. So he couldn't have said it better. So thank you, Trevor. So with that being said, that's another fear. We fear that if we change course, we're going to lose somebody or something. I mean, it could be power, it could be something like whatever it is. But many times it's somebody. If you're going, and I'm actually going back because I totally forgot to say this, or I'm getting to say it now. So if you're going on a timeline with somebody, you're going through some of the same things. But when you notice something and you don't like it in your life, but that person doesn't seem to want to change or make a difference, what happens? You jump timelines, they keep going in the same cycle. Okay? Do we feel like we lose them? Yes. We feel like we lose them because they may see things now as we continue to grow. They may see things now on a totally different level, totally different reality. It's almost like we feel like we can't fully relate to them because they can't see where we're coming from. And you see where they're coming from because you were there, but you also kind of, in a way, forget sometimes where you were and why you saw it that way. So remembering, of course, is easier to understand. But we do lose people, but they don't have to go for good. For example, a family member. Are me and my family members on the same level? No, not at all. And not a level good, bad, negative, positive, anything like that. I'm not talking about hierarchy. I love them and they're in their own path and own life. But do we see eye to eye on a lot of things? No. Rarely do we do. But I say in my energy, which also can assist with their energy. And they also teach me too, guys. It goes both ways. There's not a hierarchy. One person always teaches another person, and it goes back and forth. So always remember that. Never think you're better than someone else because they're teaching you a lesson too at the same time. Okay, so that was the idea of two people going, there's in around the same cycle or whatever, and then you go off. Will they fall away? Yes. Can they still be in your life? Yes, but on a totally different reality. So what I was saying, and I want to go back to this too, that we talked about timelines and we talked about dimensions. So say we are in a certain, I'll do it like this because I think Teal Swan did something like this, so it just made sense to me. I saw this the other day. I was like, that's a perfect way to explain it. So I believe this was Teal Swan. I don't remember, but I'll give credit to her. So whenever we are changing, so we're going we have our own timeline, right? But because we see dimensions going up, because we're raising in vibration, when we go in a timeline, we break a cycle, then we go into another timeline. But how she did it or something, I think she went up, and I kind of forgot what she was talking about. Something with timelines. You can always go check it out. I think she was talking about that. But you raise your vibration raises a bit because you're letting go of something that was harder for you, right? Those lower vibrational things that you let go of in order to get to that next level. So not only are you jumping timelines, you're also raising in vibration. Are you still in the third dimension? If we're in the third dimension right now, yes, technically you could be going more towards the fifth dimension, right? But as we go, we are shifting, so we are going dimensionally in a way, right? But also we're jumping timelines. So parallel, but I'm just showing it to you in a upward fashion since we understand dimensions going upwards. Dimensions, I understand dimensions. I get them. Like 100%. It just feels good to me. Timelines can be a little bit more confusing, right? So that's the best way I can explain it as you're going on a timeline, you make a good change in your life, you go on another timeline, but you're slightly raising in vibration, which is the way we're slightly raising in vibration to get to the fifth dimension. So when we say that we're going into the fifth dimension, we may already be there. Like many parts of us may already be there. Or all of us, like our whole energy field, like say mine, could already be in the fifth dimension. Is already in the fifth dimension. But when we say the earth is 3D, it's because the collective consciousness is still 3D. So yes, am I in the fifth dimension? Yes. Am I holding that vibration? Yes. Do I still have things from my past coming up? Slightly, only because I keep going back. Slightly. Anyways, not the point. So that's kind of how it works. So here's what people that are seers can do, right? If you are good at jumping timelines, of course, guys, if you want the, exactly how to, people work in different ways, so I don't do really how-tos exactly on these videos. But that is something that you can get in the Lightworkers Acceleration Program, is I teach on things, but I go into the how-tos, right? How to actually do it. But for people who can jump timelines, what you want to do, and we're talking about just this lifetime, right? Timelines in this lifetime. We're not even talking about concurrent lifetimes, right? Sort of. What you can do is, number one, set up the 4 pillars. Have that set up, sacred space, grounding, like heart center, and surrendering. All of those really important. And what you can do is you can jump forward into the future. Set that intention. If you already have that ability, jump forward into the future. Ask spirit, guide, God, spirit, God, universe, great spirit, whatever you believe in, and surrender and ask to be shown what it is that you need to see in order for you to come back now and make those changes now to create that, or to not create it. So you can see the future, you can see what you don't like about it, and you can be shown what it is that's not serving you, or what it is that you do need to create, depends on your guidance, and then come back into the now and take those actions and take those steps. So remember that. You can jump into the future, see what's been shown. And here's the thing. When you're jumping into the future, are you exactly jumping on the timeline you're going into? You can. But you can also jump into other multiple possible realities, okay? Depends on your gifts. It depends on, how far along you are. So if you're going in the future, you may not be going on the timeline that you are on right now. You may jump into a timeline to see what you actually want to create, and then you can come back to the now and begin your steps to create it, to jump in, to go into that timeline. So whatever way you're guided to work. But remember, in order to do this, in order to not control, because we've done this over and over and over again, is to surrender, is to be shown, is to allow to come up in the sacred space, in all the 4 pillars set up, allow to come up what it is that you need to see, not what you want to see. That's where the control comes in. Okay, that is where the control comes in, and that's where we, excuse my language, effed up so many times in different concurrent lives, past lives, however you say it. Concurrent lives, technically. So it is all about complete surrender. And as you'll notice, and as I'll say it over and over again in the 5D, it's all about complete surrender. Okay. So that is what I've got for you for tonight. A lot of people have been very quiet in this. I know it's a lot of information to take in, especially if this is slightly newer to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Feel free to type this in here. If we get off, I will check, of course, to see if you have any questions to talk about. And I'll answer your questions. And that is everything. So I'll just give you a little recap of what we learned, because this was a lot, right? Is number 1, we have, how to create our future, right? And that's talking about the abundance mindset and all of that, to make it even better, and also to break the same cycles in order to jump timelines into a new possible reality. Then we talked about timelines and dimensions and how that works. We also talked about what's stopping us, what's holding us back. Yes, it's the past, and also other things. And then we talked about seers and their gifts and what you can do. And the reason, this is it. The reason why I am brought to talk about timelines in a time like this is because it is so important. Guys, I'm saying this over and over again. I'm not saying this for my fun. I'm saying it over and over because this is so important, that we have a purpose here. We are here to help shift the earth. How do we do that? Whether it's with your family, whether it's your friend, but stop limiting ourselves on what we think we can do, and take the steps that you need in order to take them. The reason why I'm telling you this is for people who are seers. It's really important for you to help shift the earth itself and to do your purpose. It's really important for you to step in your shoes. And if you don't know how to do that, get help. Get help. Follow your guidance. Get help, because you are very important, and each and every one of you, whether you're seer or not, are very important. And in this case, we're talking about seers, so I'll talk about seers, to do this timeline hopping, to help create the earth where we need to go. And it goes even deeper into that. But the time is now, and the time is not to keep stopping yourself, because we want to go back to what we knew, because that's how we're programmed. But this is so important. And I know you feel it, but what are you doing about it? Truly, this is a question for you. What are you doing about it? And if you're following your heart and you're going exactly where you need to go and you're not holding back, that is amazing. If you're holding back a little bit, you feel like you're following your heart, but you're holding back a little bit, that's okay, right? We it takes time. But things are going faster for us, so remember that. So remember that we don't have to take so much time, okay? We don't take so much time anymore like we did in the past. So remember that. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Jan says, thank you. Now it makes sense when we had talked before and you said I had the gift of time. You do. You do, Jan. And I'm gonna do a training on more time stuff in the program. Thank you everybody and have an amazing night. And of course you'll see me on the group and I'll pop up and give you some more information. So bye.